everyone, Elayne here, and I hope that wherever you are having a oh so wonderful day. Okay, I have been really slacking on my wrap-up videos. I made a January wrap-up, I made a February wrap-up, that's it, and it is now July. So, I'm going to be doing a all the months wrap-up for March through June. And I only read about 10 books in those months. I think I'm at about 20 books right now, as where I'm at with my Goodreads goal is about 20 books. So a little behind schedule, but it's all good. Without further ado, we will get started with the very first book that I read in March, and that is A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. I listened to this on audiobook during a car ride. I actually vlogged the car ride. It was during my spring break trip, so if you watch my spring break vlog, that has more in-depth thoughts of A Monster Calls. I did rate it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Monster Calls by Patrick Ness is about a young boy whose mother has a life-threatening sickness, and he is struggling to cope with this. His parents are also divorced, and his dad lives in another country. He is having to move in with his grandma. There are school bullies to deal with. And he's trying to come to terms with the fact that his mother is dying and figuring out what he's going to do afterwards. And the way that he copes is this tree monster thing comes to him and tells him these stories. And he's supposed to learn from these stories, and then he is supposed to tell a story in return after the tree monster tells him 3 stories. So it's very, very unique. It's a very quick read. The audiobook is only a few hours long. Mostly, I thought that the book was just beautiful, and I loved how it talked about the importance of stories and how stories are like the center of everything. I also love how it used fantastical elements to get across messages of grief and love and life. Not everyone can pull that off, and Patrick Ness does a great job at using magic and fantasy to show how someone is dealing with grief and coping with life and their situations. I'm sorry, my cat is playing with this little ball spinner thing right here. So if you hear a noise, that is what that is. But anyways, back to A Monster Calls. I love how Patrick Ness was able to craft this beautiful story of grief and moving on and accepting that you can't change things, particularly when it comes to health and family and sickness. And he gets across these messages through using fantasy and magic and weird tree monsters and magical stories. And even though it's very magical and it takes you to kind of another world, you still get these messages of love and life. And I don't know, I just really liked it. Also, this book has so many amazing lines. This is probably one of the most quotable books that I've ever read in my entire life. I also watched the movie version of it, and I think that they did a really nice job. I don't really think there were that many differences. There's one difference that sticks out to me, and that's that they cut out the female friend character, but other than that, it was pretty faithful, and I think that they did a really great job. So yeah, 4.5 out of 5 stars, probably 5 out of 5 stars, honestly. Let's see, the next book that I read is Sister by Sarah Ann Strickly. I actually have a copy of Sister, but I have just misplaced it. As you can see, my bookshelves are just an absolute wreck right now. I just have so many books and I don't know where to put them, and I just moved all my books home from college back here. It's a mess. It's a mess, but I can't find it. It's a really tiny book. It's super cute. It was actually written by my professor. What I loved most about this book was just reading something that someone I know created, especially it being my professor, because, you know, she's been teaching me about creative writing and English and just the literary world, and it's cool seeing something that she's created. And I don't know, it was just a really surreal experience. I really, really enjoyed the novella. I'm not very familiar with the whole novella world, but my professor is really into that stuff, into novellas and stuff, so it was cool reading something like that. Basically, Sister is about this woman named Sister from a small town in Ohio, and it highlights 3 important moments of her life. So it jumps from her early years to motherhood to even older motherhood. So it jumps from these 3 important moments, and I really, really liked that because I just thought it was really cool and unique how it weaves through the important moments of this character's life. it really highlighted like the moments that mattered, and it was just like short and sweet and to the point. But my favorite thing probably about this novella was the town that it takes place in. The setting is this small town with like judgy people, and a lot of people in this town have been there their whole life, and you know, they know everyone, and you know everybody's secrets, and whatever you do gets out to everyone. It's kind of like hillbilly, redneckish. I have grown up around towns like this, and I just thought it was really cool to read this town, and it almost became a character of itself, right? The town was basically a character, and I thought that it was like really unique, and I think that the town is such an important part of the novella, and I think that the setting was just exquisitely done. Also, the community and the town just have such an impactful relationship with the narrator and with Sister. And you know, it kind of goes to show like wherever you're raised, and the town and the community that you are placed in has the ability to change your life and impact the way that you think and view the world. This is definitely a story that makes you think. It's a very weird, quirky, interesting read, but if you're looking for something really quick and fast-paced and something super short just to crank in your Goodreads goal maybe, this is definitely something to check out. The next book that I read was Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. This is the second book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy. Shadow and Bone, if you don't know what it is, if you live under a rock, it's about this girl who finds out she has a power, and it's set in a fantasy world. It's kind of Russian vibes. There are these people called the Grisha who have these magic powers, and this girl who finds out she has a power has to join them. And yeah, and it's just magic and shit. But this is the second one, and to be honest, this book took me forever to read. Like forever to read. Forever. And I'm blaming it on Mal. I do not like Mal. I do not want to read about him. I do not want to read about him and Elayne. I just do not like Mal. At all. And I'm sorry if you're Team Mal. I just don't like him. The Darkling is my favorite character. Well, he was. We have some stuff to talk about when I get to my next read. But the Darkling was my favorite character. He's barely even in this book. Like at all. To be honest, this felt like New Moon when Bella's with Jacob, but the whole time we're just wishing Edward would come back. That's what this felt like to me. Didn't like it. Still a great book. I loved Nikolai. I would die for Nikolai. I will say he is probably my favorite character now after reading the whole series in completion. But this book was still really enjoyable. It had a lot of fun new characters. The ending of this book was insane, explosive, made me jump right into the next one. So yeah, I did really enjoy this. I think I give it, how many stars? I give this 4 stars. Honestly, I'm surprised. I feel like I should have given it 3. But I gave it 4 when I read it in the moment, so. And that leads me to my next book. Ronin Rising by Leigh Bardugo. This is the 3rd book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy. This I gave 4.5 out of 5 stars. This was a very interesting conclusion to the trilogy. It is definitely not how I expected it to end at all. In fact, it didn't really sit well with me because it's like, okay, spoilers by the way. It's like a happy ending? Like Elayne without her power? I don't know, bro. I just didn't really like it. It was still a great book, and I actually liked how it makes me hate it because, you know, it stays away from like the cliches and does something completely unique. But also, I swear to Sancta Elayne, this book broke off a piece of my heart and crushed my soul. I hate the Darkling after reading this. But if you go back and watch my February wrap-up, I think, where I talk about Shadow and Bone, I was obsessed with the Darkling. Like, I literally love him, would die for him. This book, what he did to Nikolai, unforgivable. He is dead to me. Dead. D-E-A-D, dead to me. I hated the Darkling. I was done with every character. The only character I still really like is Nikolai. And this book did make me like Mal more. I will admit that. I did like Mal a little bit more. But I was just kind of like, really? Like Mal being the last whatever, the last little creature thingy. I don't know, broski. This book, it was 4.5 out of 5 stars because it was beautifully written. It was unique. I liked it. I enjoyed it. It just pissed me off thoroughly. But I have finished Shadow and Bone now. Don't know why I have read them so late in the game. But finished them. The next book that I read was Again But Better by Christine Riccio. For those of you who don't know who Christine Riccio is, she has a YouTube channel called Poem Bananas Books that I have been subscribed to since literally 6th grade, I think. But I've been subscribed to her for like at least 6 years, if not more. Christine is the reason I started a booktube. She is the reason I read so much. I literally love her and her videos. She is such a role model to me, and I just love seeing how far she has come. I'm just so proud of her. And I know she doesn't know me, and I don't know her in real life. I remember watching her videos in middle school and then seeing that she's an author now, and she's just so cool and accomplished. It just makes my heart so happy. This is probably one of my all-time favorite books now. Probably it's top 5 for sure. I just loved this book. It made me feel so seen. I related to the main character more than I have ever related to a narrator in my whole life, besides the family, because, and I'm not a pre-med major, I always was English, but I related to her socially and pop culturally. I loved how her mind worked in pop culture references because that is how my mind works as well. So I just loved feeling connected with Shane and feeling so seen, and I need to give you a synopsis. So this is about a girl named Shane who is a college student, but she feels as if she has done college all wrong. She hasn't ever kissed a boy. She's majoring in pre-med, which is something that she doesn't really want to do. She doesn't have a lot of friends. She just reads all the time. So she decides to spend a semester abroad in London and to kind of retry. So she creates a list of 10 things that she wants to do while in London. And also, she didn't tell her parents, but the program in London is actually for creative writing, which is what she actually wants to be studying. So she goes to London to try to get a second chance on college, and their romance ensues, and a little bit of magic and chaos and all kinds of cool stuff. Again But Better was written with such wit and humor and honesty, and while there are laugh out loud moments, there are also moments that make me want to cry. It's so real, I felt so understood, and I just absolutely love this book, and I will be thinking about it for years to come. The next book that I read is Second First Impressions by Sally Thorne. I actually left this book at my grandma's house for her to borrow. Kind of weird because it's a little smutty, but it's not that bad. But I think she'll like it. Second First Impressions is another Sally Thorne novel about a girl named Ruthie who works at a retirement home. Her whole life, she's put other people before herself. She puts the residents at the retirement home before herself. She's always working. She doesn't really take risks. She never leaves the retirement home. She watches the same TV show on repeat. And you know what? She's just living her life. But she needs a little spice, a little romance. So enter Teddy. Teddy. Long, brown hair, tattoos, leather jacket, motorcycle, easygoing vibes, mixed with Ruthie, your resident grandma. She wears cardigans, she works at a retirement home, she watches this church TV show. They're just very opposite. Do you know what they say? Opposites attract. Okay, I gave this 3.5 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. I'm a sucker for Sally Thorne novels. It's a really, really interesting premise. I've never read anything that takes place at a retirement home before. I really, really enjoyed the cast of characters. Ruthie and Teddy have my heart. I want the world for Ruthie. However, I wasn't really a fan of the pacing. I don't know if it's because I read this book so quickly, but I feel like it just happened so fast and I was like, whoa, like, wait, they're like in love now? Like, when did this happen? So it just happened so quickly that I wasn't really a fan of the pacing and it kind of threw me off a little bit. Sometimes I would feel as though I completely missed something and I would flip back and be like, did I miss something? Did I like skip a chapter? And I never skipped a chapter. I just felt as though I was missing something or missing some pivotal moment in their relationship. It didn't really show the progression that well. It just kind of went from A to Z, which is fine. It just wasn't really my cup of tea. The next book that I read is Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. Bro, this is the smuttiest book I've ever read in my entire life. It is so graphic and detailed. I was reading this on vacation at my grandparents' house. So I'm just sitting there like, my grandma's husband walks up and he's like, what are you reading? And I'm like, nothing, just this cute little romance book. Like, it's just like this cute little story. No, it says like words that are graphic. Oh my gosh, it was such, oh my God, I felt like a rebel, like living on the edge of my seat, reading this book on an airplane at my grandparents' house. Anyways, this book is about a girl named Chloe Brown who has a chronic illness. She has chronic pain. She's kind of a loner, She's a little grumpy, a little grouchy, likes things her way, and she has this near-death experience and decides that her life is just not up to par, not where she wants it to be. So she makes a list of things that she wants to do in order to get a life. So one of those things is moving out of her parents' house and getting her own apartment. So she does that, and there is this guy who is the superintendent of the building, and his name is Red. She doesn't really like him. Not at all. She thinks he's so annoying, and Red thinks she is the most, like, pretentious, snotty, rich girl in the whole world, and they just don't like each other. They don't vibe. But once again, you know what they say. Opposites attract, enemies to lovers. Hating to loving, it's a fine line, brusky. So, romance ensues, but it takes a little bit because at first, Red is supposed to just help Chloe with her list, and Chloe is supposed to help Red set up a website. But some romance happens up in there. What I loved most about this book was that it was very well thought out character-wise. Both of the characters had really deep and interesting backstories. They had trauma to overcome before they could really be together. This really shows the idea of you have to love yourself before you can love others. They've each got their own like traumas and pasts to work through, and this book kind of shows how they do that and then how they can come together in the end, which is what I loved the most. It also has a really good representation. Red has some stuff in his past, stuff he needs to work through. It's got like therapy representation, and it like takes away kind of the stigma of mental health and like talking about it. Chloe is a strong, curvy black woman who has chronic pain, and she's a badass and she's independent, and it's just very amazing. And we've got this diverse cast of characters and this awesome romance. I will say I was really nervous about the dual POVs, particularly in romance, and I don't always like reading from a dude in romance, but I actually think it worked really well. I think it helped to develop the background of the characters and their stories, and I think it just worked overall. I liked how it left me thinking about ways that I can be more inclusive in future endeavors. I've never read anything about someone with chronic pain, and in my realm of work and school, I do a lot of event planning and marketing, and this made me think about ways I can be more inclusive within those realms. So I just love that this book made me think about things besides just the romance. It just was a really great book, and I loved it. The next book that I read is Better Together by Christine Riccio. Absolutely 5 out of 5 stars. One of my favorites. Up there. It's up there. It's like Again But Better. But better? This book is about two sisters named Jamie, who is 20, and Siri, who is 18. They both have come to kind of some setbacks in their careers and in their life, and so both of them decide to go to this camp, this retreat in Colorado. Rediscover Yourself retreat, okay? Here's the plot twist though. Jamie and Siri are completely separated. Jamie is from California and Siri is from New York. Their parents are divorced. It's kind of like the Parent Trap here, right? They haven't spoken since Jamie was 6 and Siri was 4. So when they go to this camp, they're like, whoa, Brusky, I haven't seen you in like a month. Okay, it's like a Parent Trap switcheroo kind of thing. They decide to switch places to confront their parents, and chaos ensues from there. It's absolutely amazing. I was really nervous because it's described as like the Parent Trap and Freaky Friday and all this like movie stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh, is it gonna be so cliche? Is it gonna just be like the movies? But no, it was so unique, so creative. Christine really did a good job at taking these tropes and making them completely her own. Also, I love reading young adult books with actual young adults, like people in their 20s or even like 18. I absolutely loved this book. It is laugh out loud funny. Like, there were moments where I was cracking up, but there are also moments where I was literally sobbing. So I loved how Christine was able to do the laughter, but also the emotion. There were just so many sweet moments filled with emotion and depth and realness, and I loved it, and I wanted to hug all of the characters. Like I said, I loved reading about characters who are actual young adults who are still figuring their shit out. It makes me feel a lot better about my life, and that I'm still figuring shit out. Christine really created characters that you want to root for and you want the best for them. I just love her writing style, and I love her approach to magical realism and how her books are real stories that you feel like could actually happen, and then she adds this little hint of magic, and I just love that. Christine's really done it again. She knocked it out of the park. I will constantly be thinking about it. It's also just absolutely beautiful. Look at this. Can you just see this? And Christine, if you ever happen to see this, please know I love you. I'm so proud of you. You have inspired me, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. So the last book that I read is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey Quiston. This was the cutest book ever. 4 stars. It is a gay romance between the Prince of England and the first son of the United States. What more do I need to say than that? It's enemies to lovers, it's got the banter, it's got the wit, it's got the politics, it's got like political thriller, but it's got romance and it's got a little bit of spice. And it's just everything that you could possibly want, okay? It is the cutest book. I just want to give it the biggest, warmest hug. I listened to it on audiobook. It's probably the best audiobook I've ever listened to. There are times when I was just sobbing. I said this in the Book Talk Books Are They Worth the Hype video. There's this scene where there's all of these pride rallies and like support stuff. I'm trying not to be spoilery, but if you've read it, hopefully you know what I'm talking about. But I was just like crying because of all the support that they were getting, and it was just so beautiful. I think this was so beautifully written. I loved Alex and Henry, and I want nothing but the best for them. I think that Alex was a wonderful narrator. All of the characters were amazing. They each had their own unique story. I want them all to just do well in life, except for a couple characters. But Beatrice, loved her. June, I just think that the author did a really great job at providing these supporting characters who are there for like actual reasons. And I think that the relationship between Henry and Alex, but also between Henry and his sister and Alex and his sister and Nora were all really thought out and well developed, and I like that. I also liked the way that the author showed progression. So going from, you know, they don't really like each other, to now they're forced to hang out, to a little bit of friends, to even more friends, to like, oh my god, am I sexually attracted to you? To like, oh my god, am I in love with you? I just think the author did a really great job at showing the progression instead of just jumping from A to Z. So I really, really liked that. I just loved this book. 4 out of 5 stars. So cute. Deserves all of the hype. Those are the books that I have read from March to June. 9 books? It's kind of bad, but you know what? We're here, we're living, there was a lot of stuff going on, and you know what, I don't need to really make an excuse because you read what you read, and if you read a book at all, that's pretty good. So no matter what, where you are today, I hope that you're having a wonderful day. Let me know what books you read and if you've read any of these, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye!